So first of all, thanks a lot for coming. I think this is the first event probably after the pandemic where we are all meeting face to face. So it's actually nice that at least we get to travel and come out and meet each other. So today we have a very good sort of we had some good footfall, as we call, right, to our booth as well, and I think probably we'll start seeing some more traction from tomorrow. And essentially today what we wanted to do was to talk about Infosys Cobalt. And as you would have seen in the press, as well as what would have seen with respect to Infosys and what we are doing in the world of cloud, Infosys Cobalt is something that resonates with all of our customers, our partners, advisors, analysts, and everybody else. And essentially today what we will do is to cover some aspects of what we are looking at from a cloud standpoint. And we'll be supported by 4 esteemed customers of ours, and I will introduce them in the next few slides. So quickly starting with me, my name is Anant Adya, and I am part of Infosys Cobalt team at Infosys, responsible for what we call as the cloud ecosystem, right? So essentially the way we at Infosys look at Cobalt is it's not just about infrastructure or analytics or ERP or engineering or anything of that sort, which is more on the technology side, but we also bring in the industry aspect of it. So our first, as we call as Cobalt 1.0, it was all about technology solutions and figuring out how to solve technology problems. And the new pivot that we are taking, which we actually started a few quarters back, which we actually call internally as Cobalt 2.0, is focusing on industry clouds and industry solutions and how we basically take specific solutions catering to those industries. So if you come to our booth 361, you'll actually see a lot of industry solutions that we're actually talking about. So my name is Anant, and again I'm part of Infosys Cobalt, and thank you for coming to this session. We have 4 esteemed participants today. To begin with, we have Mahesh from United Airlines, and again he's going to talk about what they are doing at United. In fact, if you are a user of United app, which I'm sure all of you are, so anything that we do on the United app, whether it is related to the customer facing work that we do on United app, and what we do reservations, we look at rescheduling, and now with the pandemic, how do we basically travel internationally? All those apps are powered by AWS, and Mahesh is responsible for that. So that's one experience that Mahesh is going to talk about, and he's going to showcase a journey that they have taken to use and impact the customer experience and customers like you and me. So that's Mahesh. Then we have Raghav from Citizens Bank. In fact, when it comes to regional banks, this is one customer who has actually taken their entire data onto cloud. Mahesh is head of data platforms. Not Mahesh, sorry. Raghav is head of data platforms. And he actually is responsible for making sure that the data that resides on cloud, how do we drive insights and observations and how it can make an impact to their customers and the banking customers, right? So that's Raghav. He's going to talk about that. Then we have Keisha, who is going to talk about decarbonization, right? I think if you look at, there is a lot of focus on sustainability and carbon neutrality. How is British Petroleum using cloud to make an impact on sustainability, right? So she's going to talk about those aspects of AWS and how cloud is making an impact. And last but not the least, Prasad Joshi is our Senior Vice President and head of what we call as ISETS, and also Infosys Innovation Network. This is a very impactful thing that we are doing at Infosys, where we are actually identifying startups and upstarts where we can potentially partner with them, where we can invest in them and take them to our customers to provide niche solutions. So that's Prasad, and he's going to share his experience, and he's going to talk about what Infosys is specifically doing and what he and his team are doing on the entire Infosys Innovation Network and in general the ISETS piece of it. So that's our team today, and it's going. Please keep it. If you have got questions, please raise your hands, and we can keep it conversational. But that's our team today. Now I'll quickly talk about the overview, right? In fact, we did a research on how customers are using cloud, right? And we actually looked at categorizing customers in various buckets, from customers who are using cloud for purely tactical reasons, where it is all about taking cost out and getting agility or getting some elasticity and getting global scalability for their infrastructure, to clients who are actually using cloud to drive innovation, and they are driving innovation through better products and bettering customer experience, expanding into new markets, launching new products and solutions. So that's the extreme end of other set of customers. So that's why we called it cloud chaos to clarity. And essentially, if you look at what has happened over the last 18 months post-pandemic, customers actually have now started looking at cloud more strategically. So if you look at the way we define, we say that cloud is no longer just some infrastructure, right? It is actually becoming the foundation for driving business innovation. So that's essentially what the overview of our session or my session is today. So if you look at what does it mean, right? So if you pre-pandemic, if I look at pre-pandemic, it was mostly about driving agility, looking at getting better speed, and customers complaining that our developers are not getting instances because infrastructure team takes a lot of time to set up servers and those kind of things. So we have moved away from all of that, and now we are talking about how do we basically run secure and resilient operations, how do we basically drive innovation at scale, and how do we basically digitize the entire ecosystem of what the customer business is. So essentially, we are actually pivoting towards those areas now, because if you look at what happened during pandemic, the most or the top priority for the CXOs was to make sure that their business is running securely and their business is running with high availability and uptime. And essentially then once they got that right, they started focusing on what do we need to digitize our systems, and how do we drive digitization, how do we drive the digital transformation that is required. So that's essentially what we are focusing on now. So if you look at what we think is, COVID actually has accelerated the pace of transformation and actually accelerated the pace of cloud adoption as well. So that's essentially what we actually have seen, and we think that cloud is much more strategic than it was before what we have seen. So what does it mean for us, right? So we actually look at cloud with two lenses, right? Or what we call as Cobalt from two lenses. So on the left side, you see it is more at a very high level, right? I mean, customers are looking at cloud mostly from when they look at someone like Infosys, they look at, whether we should be a managed services partner or whether we should be a development partner, and how do they look at us. So we are actually now moved way beyond all of that, and we are actually now becoming the innovation partner for our customers. So if you look at a lot of our customers who are in the room today, plus who you'll meet at the event, they're all using us for driving innovation at scale, driving digitization at scale. And we have certain case studies and several case studies that we can talk about in terms of how they are doing it. But if you look at from a CTO lens standpoint, we actually did this exercise. It was pretty interesting. We wanted to look at defining what does cloud maturity look like from a CTO standpoint. So if you look at, it's all very good when we say that, using cloud for tactical reasons versus being an innovation partner, but what does it mean for the CTO? So one of the things that we believe that, cloud is not just going to be about public or private, right? It is going to be everything from edge to core to cloud, as we call. And essentially, cloud appropriate, cloud right strategy is what customers are looking at. But what does that mean? Majority of our customers today have multiple clouds. They just don't have one cloud, they have multiple clouds, right? Which includes, by the way, the SaaS platforms and the PaaS platforms they use. So if one of the fundamental things that we are telling the CTOs is you should look at how can you drive interoperability and portability of your apps and data across the clouds. It is easier said than done. Some customers are doing it already. Some customers are dabbling with it. Some customers actually are thinking that it is just not possible. But we actually defined we call it as the cloud evolution continuum. And we divided and we defined it for CTOs so that they can look at that. And how do we do it? We do it with Cobalt. essentially Cobalt has three different aspects, which is actually defined below. One is we have created something called a Cloud Cobalt community. And this community is community of technical innovators and business innovators who are actually working with our clients, partners, analysts, advisors to create solutions for our customers. And they also partner with what Prasad is going to talk about with the startups and the upstarts in the Silicon Valley and Israel and everywhere else, right? So that's one thing that we are doing. Second is we have Cobalt labs and playgrounds that we have created across the globe where we can actually co-create solutions for our customers and specific problems where there are no solutions available today. So that's another thing that we are doing. And last but not the least, we have set up this thing called Cobalt Store. And this Cobalt Store has over 250 business solutions. It has over 15,000 assets that our customers can use where it is reusable, it is repeatable, it has reference architecture, and it actually can reduce the manual intervention that is required when you're embarking on a cloud journey. So that's essentially the Cobalt Store. And essentially what we want to drive is to make sure that customers use cloud to drive the digitization agenda, to drive transformation, and to drive innovation. And again, it is easier said than done. But we have a lot of assets that we are using, and we are partnered with, of course, AWS, where we have co-created those solutions that you can actually see at our booth. So having spoken about Cobalt, I'd like to invite Mahesh, who will come and talk about his experience and his story and his transformation journey at United Airlines. Thank you, Mahesh, for coming, and over to you.
Thanks, Anant, and thanks everyone for joining this afternoon. My name is Mahesh Veda. I have responsibility of customer travel platforms at United. So anytime any of the tools that you use at United as part of your customer journey, and you would have encountered one of the systems that my team and I manage, develop, and support. The goal for today is I want to just take a few minutes to kind of walk you through what was our real goal as to why we actually started going through to AWS, what were the key drivers, and I come at the drivers from a couple of different angles. It's not just one key initiative or one key item that really started our journey, right? So we had a few drivers that actually go through. And our partnership with Infosys and what sort of challenges that we continue to face. We are not done by any sense of imagination. Whatever I show you today and whatever I'm talking about are real true things. So that's what I want to kind of show you some examples to kind of say these are things that we actually work on, and we do have these in live production today, but there are things that we still have to deliver, and that's where our partnership with Infosys really comes into play. And last but not least, I want to tie all this up to the business benefits and the experience, right? I don't really want to talk through just technology for technology's sake, right? Even though a lot of technology geeks would say, yes, fine, let's go do all this stuff. I want to really tie this up to what are the business benefits and what are we really talking about. So the first key thing is when you look at the chart that you see on this page, it's a really eye-popping chart, and one of the key things that you need to kind of take a look at is 2 years ago, I was here at reInvent, and United has a booming business, and we continued to move in 2019, almost 500,000 customers a day. And of course, February into March of last year came along, and with COVID, literally as the chart shows, our traffic really plummeted all the way back to, you won't even believe it's almost around 20 to 25,000 customers, right? We used to move 500,000 customers a day. We went down to basically 20,000. But business is cyclical, right? So we have kind of grown, and I don't know if you guys have noticed, most of you must have flown in yesterday, a couple of days back. Airports are full, lobbies are full, here the casinos are full, right? We had a banner day yesterday. We moved close to around 425,000 customers. So I told you 500K 2 years ago, 425K right now, right? So business is coming back, and business is basically, we are seeing traffic come across in various channels. When I say business coming back, people do click on our .com or mobile, and more than ever, people need to know, hey, what happens? How do I actually find out all the COVID rules if I'm flying international? What all do I need to know ahead of time before I go to the airport and before I start my journey, right? the main crux of me showing all of this is when we were at the beginning with 500,000 customers, we purchased a lot of servers, right? We are still purchasing a lot of things. And we have annual maintenance of licenses that we actually go through. And we are pretty much stuck, whether it is 500,000 customers or 25,000 customers. Business by itself goes through a lot of stuff, but from digital and technology, we go through our own cycles, and we are not really utilizing many of that. One of our main goals is how do we actually variabilize the cost as we actually go through the fluctuations. I'm not really anticipating another 20,000 in any time near future, even though the latest one that we are all hearing is another new version of the virus coming out, but we don't anticipate it going anywhere close to what it was last year. You will see some peaks and valleys, but the main goal is, I don't know whether you saw in the latest news and United Express announcement, we are purchasing 300 additional aircraft over the next 4 or 5 years. So where we are really planning for 500,000 customers, I'm pretty much anticipating the time when we get close to 750,000, 750,000 customers a day, right? That's a lot of customers per departure, a lot of airplanes that we will actually manage and run. So how do you actually manage the cost as you go through this channel, rather than just keep on going through the cyclical way of buying servers, managing licenses, and going through that? That's one of the key drivers from our standpoint in going through this, right? And sorry, there are a couple of other key things. We came out of a merger. I know it's 10 years ago, but as part of mergers, we get a lot of stuff that we don't really anticipate, but you do get many systems that you tie them up. And when it really comes to scale, when I'm talking about 250 more aircraft and I have to scale, those are the things that actually break when you actually go through this, right? And we want to move at the speed of startup. We want to make sure that we implement new functionality to ensure that customers do come back to United. That's our main goal. And what we are doing right now is we partner with Infosys to actually address many of these changes. So one of the first thing is, how do I actually converge or simplify my stack to make sure that all of these licenses, the proprietary licenses that I spoke about, how do we actually get out of them, right? It's not that easy. And what is the challenge? When I say we need to get out of it, what does that mean by challenge perspective, right? It's not that easy. These are things that we have probably built over the last 15, 20 years, and it's not that easy for me to get out overnight. And that's where partnering with somebody who's actually done some of these transformations kind of helps us, because we can actually really dictate how do I actually go from my current tech stack of whatever it is that I have, and how do I move out to the new tech stack, right? So that's one. The second one, as I told you, we need to move at the speed of startup. Easier said than done, right? The way we are actually going through that is we need to automate to get out. And if we automate, I can make pushes. In the past, we always hear from people to say, okay, I need to make a change. Okay, it's once a month or twice a month, at the most once a week, right? We are not that fast and nimble in making our changes and moving things along. We're getting to a point where through automation and through getting through more modern DevOps practices, we are making sure that we can even push at will at any point, right, in the middle of the day too. The way we have set up our architecture and infrastructure and some of these things, that's one. And the crux of all of this is application, code, and development, right? I can talk as much as I want about infrastructure. The goal is how much do we actually migrate? All of our logic and code, everything else is buried within our applications at the end of the day. And we are not doing real lift and shift. We are not taking an application that's sitting on-prem and just throwing it out, because we have clearly seen, been there, done that. It doesn't scale. Nothing really comes off to scale if we go through that particular process. So what we are kind of going through, and the other extreme is to say, okay, gut everything and rewrite, right? That'll take 3-4 years, and with the wild swings that you see in these major financial markets, that is the point where people may just stop all of these projects and we will just be stuck somewhere in between. So the approach we are taking is we are refactoring our applications. We are being smart, we are refactoring, and we are making sure that the performance of these applications kind of grow as we migrate this. And it's done within a reasonable period of time. We are not really talking about years, we are talking about months. And our approach is scrappy. You take a small effort, make sure that your goal is right in front of you, and you go back and achieve that in a few weeks or even at the most a month or two, right? That's it. Don't really look at it something which is 12 months away. And last but not least, how do we actually scale and build all these environments? For the first time, we built in 2 data centers on the cloud, and we are really able to fail over from one to the other as fast as we can and as much as we want to, right? We are not really waiting for a true disaster to go over from one to the other. We could just fail over as fast as we want. And when I want to kind of talk through, pivot a little bit and kind of talk through what do we mean when I say building it for reliability? What do we mean when I say for business case? Reliability, we are really talking about millions of transactions. Anytime you really talk about for United.com and mobile and how much transactions do we get, I can give you one example, right? Just the COVID travel rules that we actually have on our .com and mobile sites that customers come and access. If you book something on United and you want to actually check, hey, I'm going back to country X, what is their rule and how much do I have to come back in? There are up to 200,000 hits a day for customers who are actually coming back in to just check that particular information. So you're really talking about large scale, and these are most complex stuff, right? You're not really coming back in and clicking some basic pages and looking at static content. We have to actually go through these reads and writes and these searches, and reliability is our key goal. And as I talk through the ebb and flow of traffic, yes, we could really talk about 500,000 customers. I could really talk about all the way going back to 50,000 to 100,000 and coming back in. Our goal is always there, right? I need to be reliable. Whenever that customer comes back to our channels, they need to be able to see this, the response come back in as fast as possible. So that's our main goal. And going through to AWS and migrating these services over there really gives us that scale to make it reliable, make it faster, right? And achieve the goals that we have set out to do. And all of this is technology talk that I kind of spoke through, but I can give you one other example of practical business value of what is it that we actually delivered. We migrated what we call the customer travel platform this year, actually late last year into early this year into AWS. Anytime you make a booking on United, you will get what is called a PNR. You guys all must have seen that, right? You just go punch in that PNR that tells you to check in. You can do anything you want based off of that, right? That's your magic code that we go on. So that particular section of that PNR and all the function that goes in, airline lingo, sorry, pardon me for that, that has migrated over to AWS right now. Right? And we did code optimization, refactoring. We did not really rewrite the entire stuff. And our performance has gone up like 30, 40 times compared to what it was before. We are able to scale and we are able to perform as fast as possible. We did have a lot of challenges in terms of how do we set up this tech stack? How do we actually go through DevOps? How do we actually manage this, right? And those are ongoing challenges, and that's where partnership with a vendor and partnership with others kind of helps us go through that. But that's all internal speak. But when you actually look at from a business delivery standpoint, we delivered a lot of key business functions over the last year. All of the stuff that I show you on the right, United was the first one to waive change fees. And this particular service that I'm really talking about, the platform that I'm talking about is Crux. It's right behind in the middle of it. We never came back in and said, oh my God, I got to migrate this to AWS and all of these functions have to happen. We were the first to do waiving of change fees, and that's one of the key goals we set aside for ourselves to do, and we were able to do that. So really looking at the business target and trying to see how we can achieve it and doing all of these as part of it is the main goal, right? The second one is miles and money, so we were able to kind of buy tickets, and we are able to do that using a combination of miles and money. That's a larger effort across United, but this whole PNR management that we actually have is one of the key crux that actually drives many of that. And it was pretty much transparent, right? We never went back to the company and said, oh my God, I want to hold everything hostage because I'm migrating this off to AWS to go back in to realize all the benefits that I'm going to give you whenever I migrate over. So all of this is built in as part of that. And we also supported the launch of a brand new contact center system called Navigator, which enables, like you guys know, number one, right, when flights are canceled, anything else, what do people do? They call the contact center and they're opening up, and now a lot more, right? You basically canceled, delayed your flights, whole bunch of stuff last year, all of you converted to credit, so to reimburse or to do anything, people do contact the contact center. And this new system really helps them go through it. And I'm talking about the underlying core stuff within PNR, which actually powers many of these. And these are the business results that the company really wants, right? The company is really focused on when you go back in and talk to leaders, they really say, yes, change fees eliminated. How are we able to manage and book through with miles and money? They're not really going through and saying, hey, are you going to migrate this from your current data structure, your current set to go there? We are still realizing our goal, we're realizing our benefit, we're able to scale, we're able to move across to different data centers, right? And we're able to do all of that. But the net result is we are able to do that powered through AWS and with partnership. last but not least, I want to just leave you with some benefits that we've actually delivered, right? So when we migrate this across, our cost of ownership really goes down. And it's a combination of everything else that we really talk about. And we are able to see that in scale. When we are really talking about these complex platforms, that's where the cost of ownership really goes. And some of these are golden rules, right? We have to automate testing. We have to move. Otherwise, I cannot move at the speed of light. I cannot say that I'll work like a startup. We need to really automate to kind of go back in. And our environment provisioning and making sure that for all of our developers to all the way up to our production environments are coming back in. They are ready. They are almost as fast as possible. And we are still going through some kinks and growing pains, but it's almost there. It's much more simpler and simplified as part of this particular process. And of course, we develop more and we deploy more cycles, right? We turn over this functionality as fast as possible, and we are doing all of this as reliable as possible. And that's where our partnership really helps. And the expertise that Infosys actually brought to the table to us was through in each of these modules, they are able to really help us and guide us through each of these sections. And they work with us shoulder to shoulder, right? We are not implementing a custom package solution or anything else. We are really doing a uniquely united solution. And for our solution is where the partnership really helps. So that's the goal. And I want to really tie it up to make sure that our customer experience with all the stuff that I showed you really is what really benefits as we go through this. And thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to share the story with you guys.
Hello, am I audible? Yeah. Hi, thanks. Thank you folks for actually coming late in the evening. So I am Raghav Vadiga, working for Citizens Bank. So I head the platforms. I manage all the platforms, including on-prem and AWS, right? Whatever is there on AWS. Right now, we have migrated almost 90 to 95% of all the platforms to AWS. We had everything sitting on-prem. So we are, I think, to add on to Mahesh's challenges, whatever he faced, right, on the first slide, where he was talking about technical debt. So that was a big challenge for us. So we had, you name it, all kinds of technology platforms. We had Netezza, Teradata, DB2, all kinds of data marts sitting in all these platforms. We also had platforms like Big Insights, Netezza, and Hortonworks. So these were like legacy IBM Hadoop clusters. So that was one of the big challenge for us, running these platforms, maintaining them, continuously supporting it. You know, it was increasing our costs. So we were trying to see what was the solution in this case, right? So we also had a lot of business use cases coming in for AI, ML implementation, right? So we were not able to scale up with the existing infrastructure. We had close to, I would say, 20 use cases which came in with our current infrastructure. We were not able to scale up. So those were some of the key roadblocks that we had when we were actually, managing all these platforms which were actually on-prem, right? So that actually led us to the journey, to migrate to a cloud environment where the infrastructure could be scalable. So we had, so initially when we started with this journey, we did have a lot of challenges. So we wanted to partner up with a partner who has actually done this before. So Infosys had an existing relationship with Citizens. So they had relationship with all the app owners. Internal navigation through the organization was also very helpful. And Infosys was actually very helpful in getting this migrated over to AWS. So from a journey perspective, we had, as I said, scalability was a big concern. So we, right now, to what Mahesh was talking about, we are completely on AWS. As I said, 95% has been migrated over. So we do have, I would say, close to 2 petabytes of data, right? So we have 2 petabytes of information stored on AWS right now. It is all sitting on the S3 buckets. completely monitored, fully secured, governed with all best practice implementations. So we have close to, I think we moved around 150 source systems, right? The system of record, 150. Imagine, all kinds of different variation of sources. We had, from flat files to JSONs to XMLs to mainframes. So we had all these different varieties of sources. We built a strong ingestion framework, one consistent approach methodology to actually take it to the data lake on AWS. So right now we have, we process close to, I would say, 6 terabytes of data on a daily basis, right? So the volume of data that we process is really huge. And I'm coming from a banking background, so regulatory requirements are huge. So we have to monitor the data, make sure we track the data, there is proper lineage managed and maintained with good governance on the data that we actually ingest on AWS. So right now we have, as I said, we have the 20 AWS models, the SageMaker advanced analytics models were actually implemented. So that was a good thing. That was a huge plus for us. We had to implement these models for different use cases. So the businesses were actually expecting us to deliver this, in a pretty, timely manner, right? So like 3 months, 6 months time frame, which was impossible to be done on-prem, right, on any infrastructure. So we also did one very interesting use case called Customer 360. So I know you guys must have heard about Customer 360. It's not an MDM solution. It's not a master data management solution. It's a Customer 360. We get customer data from all different places, including social media, et cetera, right? So, and then we implement that. So it's one view of the customer on a portal where anybody can actually go in and query and get all the details. So that was possible, to be built on AWS, which was a huge use case for us. The other important thing was data governance, right? So on-prem, as I said, I'm just giving a comparison between what was there and where we are right now. On-prem, we had data marts sitting in 5 different places, 5 different locations. We have multiple data marts, 15, 20 data marts, right? So we built a new set of standards, governance on AWS. We migrated all these data marts to Redshift, right? And on Redshift, we have one consistent standard best practices for the data marts, and the data is actually good quality certified data sets that is actually sitting on the data marts. So that was a big use case. I already talked about the advanced analytics use cases. The AI environment is actually fully built. So we have a fully flexible, scalable architecture. We can actually implement any number of use cases going forward. So now we have given access to the business to come forward with their implementations so that we can help them to deliver it faster, right? So the last thing, the journey where we are actually heading next is actually to deliver something called as data as a service, right? So which is a data marketplace. So that is what we are trying to implement. So this is, the business comes in, they can get the data from this 2 petabytes that we have already stored. So we need to make sure that the data sets can be easily downloaded. It's good quality certified data sets which will be available in a portal. They can actually go through the S3 buckets and then download the data sets the way they want it, right? So this is another data marketplace use case which we are trying to implement. I think that's where we are heading going forward. So there is also multiple use cases coming in for unstructured content that we want to populate the data lake with. And also there is a use case for real-time analytics as well, so which we are trying. So I think with the huge partnership with Infosys, when we started our journey, migrating all this to the AWS environment helped us a lot. I would say that I think I just covered the overall implementations that we had and all the challenges as well, coming and migrating over to AWS. So I would say that would be it.
Hello, I am Keisha Garcia with BP, and let's see. All right. So For me, I am the Digital Foundations, or I'm the Vice President for Digital Foundations programs. And what that means is I am responsible for all of the delivery and delivery capability, our resources, that is, for our enterprise platforms and applications. And I also cover all of our digital implementation for our mergers and acquisitions and execution in relation to that, and then also the digital support for our rigs and our platforms. So, and then I also have an area specifically for sustainability. So what I'm going to discuss with you today is a bit about our journey from a BP perspective and what we've been on as far as our cloud transformation is concerned. It has been a long journey, but a good one, and we're still quite in the middle of that journey. Well, I'd like to say that we're coming closer to the end of the journey than in the middle. It has been, again, a great learning opportunity and experience, but also just not an area that hasn't been touched. For those of you that aren't familiar with BP, we are a global organization of 10,000 plus employees across over 78 countries and across the globe. And we have, I think when I first picked this up, it looked like a hard feat because we had over 10,000 or so servers across the globe and a little over 6,000 applications or so that we needed to look at and what we were going to do. Initially, when our journey started out along the cloud transformation journey, it was more so focused around infrastructure, and it was more so like an IT project. And we really weren't engaging too much along the business side or bringing them along the journey. So that made things quite a bit difficult, especially when you need the funds to be able to do and migrate and bring in the talent. And if you don't have the buy-in of your business and they don't understand exactly what it is that you're doing, it's very difficult to get them to come along and understand what the benefit is, why we're doing what we're doing, and why we need to do this, and we need to do it at pace. So initially starting out, and we started dabbling in around 2013, and with that, again, it was extremely a slow start, and with the focus of, again, the infrastructure piece and looking at our 8 mega data centers that we had, 4 in the US and the others in Europe and also in Asia as well. So with those, our focus was specifically around exiting our data centers and reducing our fixed cost. And again, worrying about just lift and shift and not necessarily any of the transformation initially. And so it was really focused around just getting out and moving over to cloud. And as things progressed and as time progressed and we weren't making a lot of progress with our migrations, however, with the help of AWS and a lot of our vendor partners, we were able to build our platform so that it was consumable. And we were doing that in parallel of also trying to migrate. And with that, again, you run into a lot of complexities and nuances of not having the talent that has the capability, as well as just the politics of it all, and then also trying to put the business case together. And when you have a business that, again, is not being brought along for the journey, because initially we were looking at it from an infrastructure perspective, then again, it makes it very hard to convince people to do something that they don't quite understand or know where they're going to get the benefit from. So we had to do a bit of resetting. And as that resetting, that was around now, given the fact that we're not a technology company, and we are really wanting to get the best out of what we need to do and making sure that we're enabling our business to do what they do best, we really need to, we took a step back and looked at what we were actually doing and why we were doing it. And then all the things that were going on within our estate, which is what we had to assess. And once we assessed our estate, we realized that we had a bunch of projects that were working across our environment to deal with our end of service of life estate, because we had infrastructure that were, I hate to say it, almost 23 or plus years old, as well as our operating systems. We still had a lot of things that were on Windows 2003. And I could go on and on and on. There was just a lot to deal with. And so with that, if we're going to go in and deal with what we needed to do to upgrade our environment, to mitigate against our cybersecurity threats for the end of serviceable life, as well as the fact that we had aspirations to innovate and to move to cloud, why do that separately? And then what does the business get from that? What are we enabling for them, and what are we really unleashing for them? So we reset our business case, re-engaged our business partners, looked at what we could do as far as who was our best partners to partner with, because we knew that internally we didn't have all of the capability that was necessary, which is where, again, partnerships with AWS, along with our partnership with Emphasis, really, really helped us to really propel to where we needed to be. And along that, that's where, and I'm sorry, I didn't realize that this was the next one. So this is exactly where we really started to look at how do we then complete our phase one, which our phase one was really focused around getting out of our America's data centers that were in Houston. And our business is quite a bit, there's quite a bit of diversity across our business, which means that there's quite a bit of diversity around our applications. So we have trading and of course, our trading that needs real-time data and information, and then the dynamics of trading in itself. You don't have the luxury to take down a system and wait over a course of a period of time till you get this right. Everything had to be quite dynamic in what we were doing. And if we were going to do it from the standpoint of transformation, we really needed to really think about what we were going to do, how we were going to plan it out, and how we were going to make this work. Along with just our legacy upstream business, our legacy downstream business, and all of the applications, the large amounts of data that we also had to deal with. We also knew that those things were going to bring about some complexities. And then just the nature of the age of our infrastructure was going to bring about some complexity in Unix boxes and different things that we still had that were legacy, real legacy applications. And with that being said, the question came about is how could we transform and perform all at the same time and also mitigate any risk to our operations, not have any downtime, and also bring our customers along for the journey. Well, it did help that we were able to, again, figure out that we needed to partner with some key partnerships. We also knew that we needed to really figure out how do we leverage more cloud native capability. And in order to do that, we needed the skill sets, the resources to be with us to be able to do those things and do that at scale. And do that at scale and at pace, and as well as the fact of making sure that we continue to keep our business afloat. So for that, that's where we ended up really putting things together, breaking things down and figuring out what do we need to do first, second, and third. And again, bringing our customers and bringing our business along for the journey so they knew what was in it for them. And so for us, we were able to complete and close out our data center, our 2 data centers, which got us to a little over 1,800 applications, a good 4,000 servers, and around 1.2 terabytes of data, or 1,200 terabytes of data. And then again, the rest of the data centers, even more. And so again, this was right at the heart of as the pandemic was starting, and a lot of the large applications that our business used were in the data center that we had moved over to the cloud. And this ended up being very instrumental because this is where the business really started to understand why it was important for us to do this migration and be on this journey together. And that was because we were really well positioned once the pandemic hit for people to work remotely from anywhere and be able to connect to any application, as well as the connectivity tools, the collaboration tools that needed to be used, and everything else. And people really started to really get that the cloud was not just this concept of something in the sky and we had to do something and no one really understood it. It was easy to then be able to relate to that with our business and get them to understand exactly what and why we were doing what we were doing. And therefore also be able to build up our team. And then later on, coming into at the back end of 2019 into 2020, some of you may know, we launched our new reorg and our new strategy of becoming an integrated energy company, and with some really big aspirations around sustainability. on top of that, we kicked off, and I think this was the last time I was at reInvent as well, our partnership that we did with AWS, which was to increase our longstanding relationship that we had with AWS. And that was to, we increased our partnership with providing them with renewable energy. And they then provided, we were moving our workloads all to AWS, to their AWS platform. And so there's a few details here about the partnership that we extended, along with an ongoing relationship of additional things that we're going to continue to do with AWS. But most importantly, this was a good and a real push towards the sustainability goals and aspirations that we had. And it was the first time that we really leveraged our partnership across, not just for the workloads that we were doing, but across our business and what we were doing within our business, and how do we help each other to meet those goals. And so those were some of the things that we did with AWS, but it also made us realize that there are several things that have to work around our sustainability within these pieces in order for us to meet our goals. So with BP and our reInvent strategy and our reorg, and also being able to leverage the new relationships that we were building with the likes of AWS, Emphasis, as well as just our business coming along for the partnership and realizing that it's no longer just tin and bells and whistles anymore, that infrastructure now takes on a whole new meaning when you start looking at cloud platforms. It acts as the software configurations and enablers, and also to be able to propel you to areas that you're not able to potentially reach on your own or manually or just as individuals. And it really drove home how digital should be the forefront and the catalyst to drive what we're doing and how we do and how we get to our goals of sustainability. And that's where our business across the board, everyone is digital. Everyone's along for the journey. Everyone understands the importance of what we're doing with cloud and where and how they play a role in that, all the way down from whether it's utilizing public cloud to be able to access the different things that they need to bring things together from a connectivity perspective when it comes to data and bringing things together from a data hub perspective, and or as we start to dabble in our edge case technology and moving things to our remote locations so that we are using the technology that's necessary for our rigs and our platforms that are in remote countries and different things that may not necessarily be closer to an availability zone. So there's just so much that we've learned over the course of the 5 years. And again, it's taken a really great team that I have that's been able to, one, continue to tackle all the things in parallel, again, to begin to build, continue the enablement of the platform, but at the same time, continue to move and focus on those migrations. But as we continue to work, again, the key driver is, one, bringing our business along for the journey, making sure that they understand what's in it for them, but then also the partnerships that have to happen. And not just from a sustainability of moving to the cloud, because that's just one aspect of it, but then there's the pieces where we want to improve our environment and improve the lives of people, as well as all the other sustainability aims and goals that we have from a BP perspective. That's where those things are so large that you cannot do that on your own. You need to partner with people to do that. And those are the partnerships that we've absolutely tried to optimize and maximize across the space with the likes of, like I said, Emphasis has partnered with us on quite a bit of things and have been very helpful in that aspect, not just from our cloud migrations, but also for improving the lives of people from a DE&I perspective, from what we're doing as in helping them to meet their sustainability goals, as well as us partnering together for us to meet our sustainability goals. And the same with AWS and several other partners. But this is where those things are extremely important for us to be able to do that. So for me, and I think that was it for my slides, sorry. But for me, that has been the journey. And for my team, it has been a long journey. I know that there's some of them that are here today that are leading some of the efforts for us. And it has been a way for us to learn. There's not one part of the business that we haven't touched. There's not one issue that we haven't turned into or that we haven't had to deal with. But the big thing is building up that capability within our team, building up and educating and ensuring that they know what's coming and how it's coming, and then the new innovation tools. It's not only an attraction for talent, because people are want to be a part of the things that we're doing from a sustainability perspective, as well as just the innovation that continues to drive what we need to do to fulfill the needs to be enablers for our business, to be able to allow them to be the best at what they do, and for us to be the best at what we do from a digital perspective, to incorporate digital in everything that we do, and sustainability in everything that we do, in our DNA. And that's where we've gotten to with our business now. And we are currently, our goal was we always knew that we were never going to be 100% on the cloud, because of the simple fact that we are in remote locations and just the different needs. It is not something that there's not a one size fits all and everything's going to be there. So there's probably about 5 to 10% of our landscape that will still remain on-prem. But for those things that remain on-prem, we're trying to make sure that we're putting those on cloud compatible or high compute infrastructure, as well as the fact that we're also trying to ensure that they have the right edge case, or if there's the demand that's there, that the technology that we put in is future-proof, and or we're able to build on it from a modernization perspective and keeping it evergreen. From the things that we are able to move to the cloud, again, we had 8 mega data centers. I'm happy to say that we are now down to, I think, 4 more. So we have completed, like I said, the 2 in Houston. We still have 2 more in the Americas. That's out of our Chicago area. And then we are currently almost complete with our European data centers, which is the largest of the data centers. It has a lot of our old legacy applications and a lot of complexity, so it's taken us a bit longer for those. But we're nearing completion there, and putting us to the point where we are a little bit under 80%, over 77% on the cloud, and we will be by the end of the year. And I'm sure that my principal portfolio manager, who is here, has been doing a great job at that. I'm not, no pressure, but we are going to get there by the end of the year. As well as the fact that we've had some regional data centers that we are working through as well. But all of this, again, has not been, or would not have been possible without just making sure that our business is also engaged. They know what we're doing while we're doing it, and the partnerships that we've been able to build. As well as just stepping through this, not from just doing the mere basics, but making sure that we're always asking ourselves and challenging ourselves as to how much can we transform, how much can we do, and making sure that we're starting to transition into doing more cloud native capabilities, so that as we start to move and put things on the cloud, that we're not doing it and just continuing with old, outdated software applications, but we're actually transforming. And that's where we've really started to really hit our stride, because as you all know, as I'm sure experienced folks with doing cloud migrations, it can get quite expensive if you don't make sure that you're doing things as optimally as possible. And that's been our focus at this particular point in time. So for us, it has been a journey. We're still on the journey, but it's been a great journey, and one that contributes highly to our sustainability goals, and one that is recognizable throughout our company because of the hard work that the team has put in, and how well we've been able to move at pace and still transform, as well as reduce our cost. So that's our BP journey, along with our partnership with the likes of AWS, Emphasis, and several other vendor partners as well.
Am I audible? Thank you so much, Keisha, Mahesh, and Raghav. Hard act to follow. You've talked about scale, you've talked about what cloud does. I'm going to start with a few tidbits. March 14th is an important date. For me personally, I'll talk about it over a wine. Einstein was born on March 14th, and world changed because of that. S3 was born on March 14th, 2006. AWS's first product launch publicly available. World changed because of that. Most of the world shut down around March 14th, 2020. World changed out of that and created a chaos. We are looking for that clarity. That's the topic of our discussion today. My name is Prasad Joshi, and I lead Infosys Innovation worldwide. I have the coolest job in the company where I get to fail umpteen number of times and never get questioned, never get asked questions about what my revenue is, and I get to work with solid customer partners such as yourselves. So I'm going to rush through a little bit here. I want to catch up on some time. We'll talk about Living Labs and what that does. We're going to work through this in that spirit that we've talked about chaos, we've talked about clarity. How do we get there fast? The only way to get there is to get there with experiences. We have always talked about things like IT takes a while and systems are slow to change. Even now, we talked about 23 years old systems, and they have been of a certain kind. The ability to fail fast, the ability to experiment, the ability to track new and figure out what happens is where I think the innovation plays a role. I think each one who came before me has talked about role of innovation. Anand started with innovating at scale. Living Labs is our approach to that method to the madness, where we bring in these capabilities. And rather than talk about specific tenets of each of these, I'll take a large telecom company. We have done over a period of 18 months that we've been working with them. We have done roughly about 60 capability development options. Multitude of factors that includes cloud adoption. Some of that is with AWS. Includes capabilities around cybersecurity. We have tried stuff such as we type on our keyboards, we have specific signatures, just like our fingerprints. And can that be tracked to improve security? As I walk here, my gait can give a pattern as to what we can do. And we found startups that do these kinds of things in the world. Just to give you that size and scale information, the spend on that innovation set of projects is roughly about $18 million. And that telecom company has created projects that are worth size of about $100 million. Not everything is with Infosys. It's not about Infosys. It's about that company, which has changed, and they are a leader in 5G as we speak, has changed the way they operate and work with their business. Another customer of ours, launching and changing business from pure capital markets business to a retirement services company and building in the process capabilities that are required. How did we play a role in this? And that's where, of course, rapid failure, figuring out ways by which we can do experiments quickly are required. Industry knowledge, figuring out what my problem statements are and where the industry is moving is a crucial element of how do we do that. AWS-like partners, and we have had AWS sandboxes made available as part of the Living Labs program, which allows us to play with rapidly building and installing these sandboxes and bring it up in that manner. So role of emerging technologies, role of fail fast, ability to scale, industry scale products, and then figuring out a startup network that we had to build in order to bring this capability to you. How can this benefit all of us in that process? Anand briefly talked about Cobalt Store. There are services. Many of us have common problems as we accelerate our capabilities on the cloud. An ability to bring in these common shared experiences, solving the problems together, is a key element. I'm getting signals from the backside, so I think we have to empty the hall and wrap up the session. But this is, meet us at our booth, 361. I'm here for next 3 or 4 days. Would be happy to walk through the details of what Living Labs can do and how they're effectively generating the scale that is required for cloud adoption and the journey, and truly establish the chaos, remove the chaos and establish the clarity. I'll bring back Anand for wrapping it up.